Bad sport has always been a topic of discussion and debate since the early days of GTA Online. Is it really necessary for a online multiplayer game set around criminals to punish other criminals for attacking and killing and tryharding and griefing other criminals? And what should be the punishment and what should not be considered punishable and resulting in putting somebody into bad sport? Riley, as some of you know, my fiance, she also has her own channel, Riley Black Fox. She does a lot of dog fighting videos and FNAF and some other fun stuff. She came up to my office complaining that she had been put into bad sport. After defending the city of LS for the millionth time, sadly, I'm in bad sport again for a few days, so her Avenger video is delayed. All she was doing was PvPing in a public lobby other players in weaponized vehicles, whether they were flying around in Mark II oppressors, aka broomsticks, or other players in fighter jets. The fact that she was the better player and was destroying broomsticks and fighter jets, this merited punishment for Riley to go into a bad sport lobby for, well, 2 days. It's only 2 days. That's not bad. But was it necessary to put Riley in a bad sport lobby for 2 days for simply attacking other players that were attacking her? It doesn't really make sense. So this idea I have for retooling or tweaking, improving bad sport, I guess you could say it's a spiritual sequel to my original video on the channel over 9 years ago. My Bolingbroke video where I had the idea, that's what sparked the channel, to put bad sports in Bolingbroke. In case any of you are curious, I'll put that video below in the description section. This also ties into the mental state. So the mental state was added a long time ago to GTA Online, which basically warns you if you're going psycho. It also warns other players. Your little icon on the map will change colors from white to, I think, pink, and then blood red if it's like really, really bad. The problem with the mental state system, I don't think Rockstar ever fixed the mental state system, is that it's not just for destroying other players' vehicles or killing other players. It's also for the toll and the chaos you wreak upon the NPC population of the game, destroying NPC vehicles, getting into shootouts with the police in the game. That also affects your mental state. I'm of the opinion, and this is how I feel since I did a rant about it a long time ago, the mental state should have nothing to do with the NPCs. You should be able to go crazy on the police or NPCs in GTA Online to your heart's content and not have it affect your mental state. That should only be for other players. How many players you've killed, how many player vehicles you have destroyed. That's what the mental state should apply to. So this is definitely something that Rockstar should go back and retool, and it's been a long time coming. They should have done this years ago, but they haven't. What a surprise. No longer punish players for bad sport for simply destroying other players in weaponized vehicles. I don't know why Rockstar hasn't changed this policy, because you've added a ton of weaponized vehicles over the years. The game is completely different than it was in the early days from like 2013 to 2015. There's a lot more weaponized vehicles. Not only that, we also have agency vehicles. We have broomsticks, the Mark II Oppressor. We have tanks, attack helicopters, fighter jets, warplanes, the Avenger, Ruiner 2000, Deluxo, Stromberg, the Torador. I would even say include the Night Shark because it's armor plated. It can take a wallop or two along with the Insurgents. Like, there should be vehicles that are, I guess, flagged as punishable by bad sport and vehicles that are not. And all the vehicles I just mentioned are vehicles that are in that category of weaponized military agency vehicles or experimental vehicles with guns, rockets, or like additional armor plating, should not be punishable if they're destroyed by bad sport. It just really doesn't make sense to me, especially since in the public lobbies, most of the time you have players PvPing each other whether it's like one-on-one, like shooting each other in a shooting war using the bull shark testosterone, or even like with weaponized vehicles. I just don't think that that should be a punishable offense by bad sport. I would even tone down the cops' response to players killing other players that happen to be PvPing, because all too often the police tend to interfere when players are simply just wanting to PvP against each other. Now, when it comes to the grinding community, because a lot of times the grinders end up being the victims of the tryhards, the griefers, the PvPers. However, there have also been changes when it comes to selling merchandise or product. Used to be you had no choice but to do selling in public lobbies. Nowadays, grinders have the option to sell in friend invite lobbies away from the PvPers and the tryhards and the griefers. There's a risk-reward situation here when it comes to selling in public lobbies, and the grinders know that. They're fully aware of the fact that if they are to sell in a public lobby, they might end up getting paid more, depending on the population of the lobby, but there's also a greater risk that one or more players might come after them and destroy their product. They know what they're getting into now when grinders are selling in a public lobby. If you don't want a player to come after you while selling, do it in a friend lobby or an invite lobby. I would say a friend lobby because invite lobbies are still kind of broken. Rockstar practically encourages other players to go after sellers. And that's been the case since day one. They will let you know, like, hey, somebody is selling products, somebody is doing this. And they encourage you to go after the grinders. Yet they punish you by putting you into bad sport or warning you about bad sport if you destroy a seller's products. Like, personally, I would never do this to a seller if I was in a public lobby. But like I said, most grinders and sellers know what they're getting into when they're selling in a public lobby. And why should the PvPers, the griefers, the tryhards be punished when the game itself is encouraging them to go after the sellers and grindhards? It doesn't really make sense. So what should be the purpose of bad sport? What should it be used for specifically? Well, attacking Carmates. A lot of people still like to meet in public at different places and show off their cars, whether they're muscle cars, sports cars, supercars, etc. Other players that attack civilian player vehicles, not NPC, but civilian player vehicles that are non-weaponized or have no defenses, yeah, that should count towards bad sport. So if you go along destroying a player's civilian car, whether it's a coupe, a sedan, a motorcycle, muscle car, sports, SUVs, supercars, or even unarmed boats or unarmed aircraft like Froggers, Mavericks. There's even some unarmed aircraft like planes and jets in the game, like Luxors, Titans, etc. They have no weapons and no countermeasures and no additional armor. Destroying anyone that happens to be in a civilian aircraft or in a civvy-type vehicle, their own personal civilian vehicle that has no weapons, no armor plating, no countermeasures, yeah, that should count towards bad sport points. And obviously, if you destroy too many civilian vehicles or civilian boats or civilian aircrafts being currently used by a player, then obviously that's going to result in somebody being put into a bad sport lobby. The other purpose of bad sport should be towards anyone responsible for using God mode. Unfortunately, God mode is still a problem in GTA Online, mostly because Rockstar fails to react quick enough to God mode exploits. They take their sweet time trying to patch them, and usually it's in vain anyways, because there's always a workaround found, whether it was the Speedo God mode or what over the past few months, Taxi God mode, list goes on and on. Anyone caught in God mode should be automatically sent to a bad sport lobby. You'd think that Rockstar would have a way of detecting whether or not a player is in God mode. There is a reporting system that we can use, but it seems like Rockstar never really uses it or takes advantage of it. For example, if you have somebody in your lobby God moding and you report them and the entire lobby reports them, it doesn't seem like they get punished for God moding. So maybe, Rockstar, you ought to set up the parameters to detect God mode. And if somebody goes into God mode, then punish them by automatically sending them into a bad sport lobby. That seems like a good purpose for bad sport. Orb spamming would be another justification to put somebody into bad sport, but I think Rockstar has done a pretty decent job, like making the orb canning nerf to where less people are orb spamming these days. I don't even know if that's really a thing anymore in GTA. Unfortunately, there's always a possibility of somebody finding a workaround and orb spamming returning to GTA Online. But yeah, orb spammers, God moders definitely deserve to be put into bad sport, along with anyone guilty of destroying too many unarmed players, civilian vehicles, boats, and aircraft that have no weapons or countermeasures to them or any armor plating at all. That should be the only groups that should be punished with bad sport, not the PvP players, not players that are fighting other players with weaponized vehicles, whether it's with broomsticks or with fighter jets or attack helicopters, Deluxos, Strombergs, Toradors, or even players that are in armor vehicles like the agency vehicles or Night Sharks, Insurgents, because, well, you have those vehicles for a reason, don't you? Because you know that if you're in a public lobby, your best bet to get from point A to point B is with a vehicle that has some armor plating to it, or missile jamming, or some guns and weapons, or mines. Most players know what they're getting into when they step into a public lobby. And there's less of a reason now for grinders and sellers to go into a public lobby besides that risk reward that we were talking about earlier. So I definitely think that bad sports should be retooled. Will it be? Most likely not. A, Rockstar hasn't really bothered doing that in a very long time. And B, GTA Online is probably getting closer to the end of its live service. We know that Rockstar's been working on GTA 6 since at least 2019, and it's probably very close to being, at the very least, announced. Probably a tease coming before the end of the year, and it could be out by, at the earliest, fall 2024, or maybe 2025. But once GTA 6 comes out, there's obviously going to be an online version of GTA 6, which means that live service for GTA Online will most likely be coming to an end within a year or two anyways. But maybe Rockstar could, at the very least, learn lessons over the past nearly decade of GTA Online, including when it comes to bad sport and what works and what doesn't work, and implement it in the next GTA Online, whether it's GTA Online 2.0, GTA 6 Online, or whatever they end up calling it. But yes, I don't think that players that are simply PvPing each other, whether it's on the ground with just guns or in the air with fighter jets, broomsticks, or with any other weaponized vehicle, like we talked about, tanks, insurgents, even armored vehicles, or with the experimental craft like the broomsticks, Deluxos, Strombergs, Toradors. I don't think if any of those vehicles are destroyed by another player, I don't think that player should be put into a bad sport lobby. But that's pretty much how I feel about the current state of bad sport in GTA Online. But Rockstar, if you want to implement my ball and broke idea, which is, 9+ years old, it's never too late. Your thoughts, your views, and opinions regarding the current state of bad sport and what you would like to do to see Rockstar tweak it or improve it, welcome, as always, below in the comments section.